Am I the asshole for telling my niece she'll have to move out if she's not my nanny anymore? I'm a single mom to two kids aged 6. I work as a nurse. 3 days a week, I work 12-hour shifts 12 p.m. 12 a.m. After my husband passed, I needed a nanny to tend to my kids from the time they got off school 3 p.m. onwards. I decided a live-in was the best choice. I have one guest bedroom. I live right near a university. Around this time, my niece had just gotten accepted. She wanted to save cost on dorms and offered to watch my kids those 3 days, if she could live there rent-free. I agreed, and said I'd also pay her $22 hour, a competitive rate for our area. She's done with her classes by 1, so it works out. She fixes them dinner and puts them to bed. Then she's free to do whatever. But of course I pay her from 3 p.m. 12:30 a.m. It worked for 2 years. My niece never had any complaints. Now, however, my niece is getting an unpaid internship related to her major that starts in January. She wouldn't be available to watch my kids. I congratulated her and said I could help her look into student housing or an apartment. We'd have 3 months to do this. She was confused. I said since I would need a live-in and only have one guest room, she would have to move out. My niece got upset and said this isn't fair, she won't be able to save any money if she gets a dorm or an apartment she could afford to live on her own, but wouldn't have much savings. I pointed out that this would work best for me as I had to put my kids in aftercare the other 2 days I work. I get off around 5 and the nanny could just pick them up from school versus them having to stay there so long. My niece argued that the nanny could leave at the end of her shift, but after speaking to some nannies, they understandably don't want to drive home so late. Plus, I'm fine with the nanny and my niece sleeping after the kids do. So, there's no sense in them sleeping then waking up and driving so drowsy. Even I feel nervous driving home so late, especially after my long shift. Her mom feels this is unfair to my niece, but she moved in under the condition that she'd work as a nanny. My sil and brother live 3 hours away, so niece couldn't commute if she moved back in with them. They feel I should try to find a nanny who'd be willing to drive home at 12:30 a.m. It'd take me a half-hour minimum to get home, but all nannies I've spoken to have said no or expressed concern about their safety driving so late. Am I the asshole? Edit to answer from FAQ. The internship is all semester long. My niece isn't interested in nannying at all going forward and will instead be pursuing internships. She has no desire to work after her internship is over for the day. She knew from the jump that I was only looking for a live-in specifically for childcare. I have also provided her written notice and am covering my ass legally. Not the asshole. She fully knows she moved into a room that was intended for a nanny, as she fulfilled that role for 2 years. It is unfair for her to now demand a change to the arrangement, especially since this would be at a heavy cost to you. They are also an adult who has been paid a nice hourly rate between 3 p.m. and 12 a.m., without any rent being charged. What were they doing with that money? After 2 years they could have something set aside. Tuition isn't cheap, but holy have they squandered a great opportunity if they can't be ready to move out in 3 months. Not the asshole at all. I'd go for the jugular and ask them why they feel a widowed single mother who's just trying to hold it all together is obligated to provide their adult daughter with free housing. I'm surprised you were paying her as much as you were considering the free housing. Not the asshole. I doubt you will find a nanny willing to work those hours and then drive home late at night. Start interviewing and make it clear to your niece she has to be gone by the time the new nanny starts. She is a big girl, she can live in halls with the other students. Not the asshole. The living arrangement was for the nanny, a position that your niece was filling. It was not made for your niece, specifically. If your niece is quitting the nanny job, then that means she is also giving up the accoutrements that came with it. It sounds like she is misremembering or just plain rewriting the terms of the arrangement to suit herself. Regardless, this is a problem that she has created for herself through wrong assumptions and lack of planning. Stand your ground, it's her problem to solve, not your burden to shoulder. Not the asshole. A mutually beneficial arrangement has come to a natural end. Not the asshole. You need to get a lawyer to draft an official move-out document with a 30-day date. Her parents are going to tell her to just stay and call your bluff because family. Don't let her screw you and your kids over. Not the asshole. They feel I should try to find a nanny who'd be willing to drive home at 12:30 a.m. or they could pay for their kid to live somewhere else. You gave her free rent for 2 years, since you paid her to work as a nanny. Not the asshole. She had a double great deal. You gave housing and competitive pay. Now she's moving on but doesn't want to give up free housing. Such a shame. She and her mother are being childish and don't understand you need the room for the next nanny. Nata. So you need to find a nanny that doesn't want to live with you. This would upset your whole lives. Your niece agreed to be the nanny if she could live rent-free and get your paid nanny. Now she wants to end your agreement and wants you to sacrifice your family routine so she doesn't have to change anything in her life. Tell her you will be charging $1,000 a month plus utilities and food if she stays. Is your whole family so self-centered? It is your job to put your children and your life before what niece and sister want. Stand up or be walked on. Your choice. Nata. You've been paying her $600 a week, plus free food and housing, for 2 years, and she's not been able to save anything? Not the asshole. You are supporting your children. Your niece's parents need to support their child. You hired her for a job that included a place to live. She's leaving the job, the place is no longer hers. If she worked at Walmart and quit, she would no longer be able to drink the free coffee in the break room. She had a good situation, but she is choosing a different option, which is reasonable for her career, but it isn't your job to house her. Not the asshole. Aside from free housing, she was paid an overly fair wage that most would consider livable. Income totally depends on area, of course. If she did not manage her personal finances properly, it would be difficult to make this transition, but that's not Op's fault. Ultimately, the niece may find herself in a bind but has no right to point the finger at anyone but herself for not creating an emergency fund. It almost comes across as entitlement, because it's her situation that's changing, not Op's. Not the asshole. She moved in with a specific understanding that the terms would be mutually beneficial. She changed the terms and the agreement is no longer mutually beneficial. So she lives elsewhere. Seems clear. Not the asshole. She is quitting her job so she loses her room board benefit. What if she nannied for a stranger? Would she and her parents expect the former employer to continue to give her free room board? Your niece, brother and sis are being greedy and selfish. Your only concern is your children, not your niece. She has 2 parents to help her. Your kids only have you. Hire a live-in nanny and move niece out. Nata. The room is for a live-in nanny. She is no longer a live-in nanny. Try this. Look up the price for such a room in your area. Tell your niece that if she really wants to live there, she will have to pay that rent. Or just tell her a date to be out by. TBH demanding free housing because otherwise she won't be able to save as much. Left a pretty bad taste in my mouth. Your life does not, cannot, revolve around your niece. You have kids of your own. If your sis feels so strongly that her daughter should live rent-free, she can pay her daughter's rent once she moves out. Good luck with your search for a new nanny. Not the asshole. She entered an agreement with terms, so she should not be surprised to be bound by them. Not the asshole. Her being the nanny in exchange for housing was the deal. It's still the deal. She basically now wants to live with you rent-free while you have to figure out to manage a new nanny. Nope. You're not responsible for helping her save money by giving her a free place to stay. You have your own kids to worry with and she needs to find other living arrangements. Natasha and her mom only feel it's unfair because they no longer get things slanted in their favor. I had YT wound up after the title, but no. Not the asshole. That spare room is for the nanny. And, As you're already seen, most nanny aren't going to want to drive home so late.